Welcome back to part 2 of the Abbots Bromley Living History. As well as guns, we have Napoleonic, we have the Spanish Civil War, and the American frontier.
This is the Lamate sidearm.
Right.
It's a French designed sidearm pistol that typically officers, cavalry officers from the American Civil War would have had. Now it is unique compared to many other sidearms from the period. Only 300 of these were ever produced, very rare. And it's known for the multi-barrelled feature. You can fit multiple rounds in here, about 10 or 11. You would fit the percussion cap on this part of the mechanism there. That's called the nipple. I know it's not the best term ever, but that is what that part there is called. This is the hammer. You would half cock it, and you would then fit the percussion caps on one by one. Full cock it. You would then aim and fire. And it was pretty simple in that regard. You've got the two-barreled feature because you can fire two different kinds of shots, right, here and here. This is a larger caliber, and one of these can be if you receive a bullet from one of these, wound will be life-changing and likely will lead to loss of a limb or amputation. So it's nasty when you think about damage that this can do. And yeah, and that's more or less a basic summary of the Lamate sidearm. There's only one known example of a Confederate cavalry general who made use of this, but it's very rare compared to, and wasn't favoured over other sidearms from the war.
So is that a replica one?
It is a replica, yeah.
So, like you say, there wasn't many original ones left then, I assume.
Yeah.
I think if there was an original one, it'd probably be kept in like a safe.
Yeah, because
so,
it's so rare. Exactly, yeah, because it's so rare, it's very difficult to actually get a normal live version, because this is just the DEAC.
So why did this go out of favour then? Why was this one not used as much as others?
Because of it had reliability issues and was also had difficulty with loading compared to other sidearms. And I may be missing something here, but primarily it's issues with reloading and also its usage on and it was also very heavy compared to its weight. It was a lot more, and also size-wise, it's bulkier, and it could be more of a burden to carry, considering the extra amount of kit that soldiers and officers would wear when in the field.
Yes.
So I think that's more or less the reason why.
Okay.
I hope that was useful.
That was great, thank you. Yeah,
pleasure.
By night and
Pinkerton Detective Agency during the day.
All right, so
Pinkerton Detectives formed in the heat of the American Civil War. They were Alan Pinkerton was a Scotsman who went over to America, went to work for Lincoln when he was a senator. When Lincoln became president, because he'd been doing work with Alan Pinkerton then became Lincoln's spy master for the rest of the Civil War. Alan Pinkerton was the first person to employ a female detective that's documented.
Right, yeah.
So it's not to say that women didn't work for the police in any other country, but it's the first one documented anywhere, Kate Warren. So she worked for Alan Pinkerton. He wasn't that keen on having her as a detective to start with, but she proved that she could go places, hear things, find out information that men couldn't. He set her a task and she achieved it within 2 or 3 days. That's something he'd been trying to get his male detectives to do for a long time. So, and within a very short period of time, she then went on to recruit other women into the detective agency. She recruited the first Afro-American woman into the detective agency, the Pinkertons. Pinkertons are still going today. They're still a part of a subsidiary of a multinational security company. So they're still out there and about.
What date was this roughly?
What, from we are sitting in, when they got taken over by the multinational? Or?
No, originally.
Oh, originally it would have been 1860s. Well, 1864, 1863 was the American Civil War. In 1864, 1865 it finished. And that's when they would have gone into doing, the Pinkertons would have gone into doing private detective work.
Right.
They would have been hired to be the security on gold shipments, to protect trains from being robbed. Bounty hunters, they would have been employed as bounty hunters to go and get people. So yeah, that's when that part of it started. But there was a bit of a downside to them, because they were also, depending on where your politics lies, they're also employed to break strikes, on the East Coast cities. They're also employed to running or help scab workers get over picket lines into the factories for the factory bosses. So that's who employed them, because they were a company that wanted to make money.
So, I was going to say, so they get whatever the money took them, I
they
assume.
with the money. So but then they went, going back later into the 1900s, they did other stuff. But they were responsible for chasing down like the Jesse James gang, Butch Cassidy and Sundance when they were in the US before they moved south to Bolivia and places like that. So yeah, they had fingers in all sorts of pies in all sorts of places. But they would have gone in different places, because this Spearfish Creek is what we are, is an actual town in South Dakota, just down the road from a place called Deadwood, which most people know more of. But we would have been a squatters miners camp. Custer went in about 1873, 1874 with a mapping expedition for the railroad, came back out of what was basically Native American treaty land, reservation land, and declared that gold had been found. So started a gold rush. A few years later the government had to break the treaty with the Native Americans because there were so many prospectors going in there and so many were getting killed by the Native Americans, yet the Americans had to send the US Army in to put down the bad American natives and, you know, the good prospectors who weren't doing anything wrong.
Of course not.
So that's roughly the period we cover. We would have been a squatters miners town. There wouldn't have been any law, so the chances are the Pinkertons would have been employed to go in, take the gold out. Because they would have, it would have been a few weeks journey travelling by horse or by stagecoach or something to get in and out of these places. So the gold would have been at risk of being stolen anywhere along the line, because there's plenty of people who were unemployed or looking for a quick buck after the American Civil War, ex-soldiers and stuff. So yeah, they would have been. That's why there's no real law in our town, but the Pinkertons would have been about.
Yes, so they would have enforced their own law, I suppose.
But they want to make money, so if they're not making money doing that, come the evening, we put the saloon sign out, get the card table out, and rob you blind at cards.
Thank you.
Land to people, prospectors, gold miners. But he would also be a bit of a thief, so he'd sell a plot of land for say $200. He'd then sell the same plot to someone else. So he was a bit of a con man.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, I say, isn't that lovely?
Not great for my height,
Not for your height, no. You have to stoop a bit, don't you, sometimes? This is it, so we'll see where this left.
But say these are all smooth bore. That's an English matchlock musket from like the English Civil War period. A fishtail one. This is a Jaeger, German Jaeger rifle. And then do you ever watch Sharp?
Yes.
You know he had the Baker rifle?
Yes.
Well, Ezekiel Baker got his idea for the Baker rifle, which is that,
Over there,
from this one.
Oh, right, okay.
German Jaeger. And then I bought this one. This is just a double barrel shotgun. But it looks modern because it's over and under. But this is a Beretta. This is a tricentennial model they made in 1980.
So is this one of the first Berettas then?
Beretta is the oldest gun manufacturing company still going. And they've done this it's a tricentennial model. So this was made in 1980 because they started in 1680. They're all smooth bore, and a lot of them didn't have sights because they're not accurate. But you're not trying to pick off somebody. They're fighting. The armies are fighting like the ships used to fight. All line up and walk closer and closer and keep doing volley fires. Because I just point it at you. I might be pointing at you, but it might hit the bloke 4 people away from you. I ain't bothered. But This is what they call an English fishtail one, because when they were using this, it's going to be 30 years before a Frenchman comes up with the idea when you finish shooting it, you could put a dagger down the barrel.
Yes.
And using it. And that was outside of a town called Bayonne.
Oh right, that's where bayonet is.
Yeah,
Obviously,
yeah.
Yes.
So what the English used to do, and the English were known to be they're not nice people, because the European musketeers, they'd fire, and then when everybody got close, they'd throw the muskets down, draw the swords, and then go hacking each other. But the English, we don't do that, especially the parliamentarians. You're not throwing your musket down.
Oh.
So what they did, they actually turned it round.
Yeah.
And then used it as a club, and that's why that butt
Oh,
is that
that shape. Right. That makes sense.
We were focused on winning.
Sorry?
We were focused on winning, not looking
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, if you throw your musket down and then you go into the swords, and then somebody says, "Quick, all form up, we're going to shoot." The standardisation is not there, so you might run and pick a musket up near you, and then you find out that your musket ball ain't not going to fit down that barrel.
Yeah.
So if you keep it with you, you know that your kit is all together and it's going to work.
Yes.
So yeah. So that's a matchlock, that's a flintlock, and that's a percussion cap.
Brilliant. Thank you.
You're more than welcome under muzzle loader, shotgun, Beretta shotgun. It just looks modern, doesn't it?
It does,
compared to the other stuff, but it's a muzzle loader. And when you pull the trigger, it's the bottom barrel that fires first. So you pull the front trigger, but you're actually firing the bottom barrel. Most people think you're firing the top, but you're firing the bottom barrel.
So the front trigger fires the bottom barrel, then the back trigger fires
the back,
top barrel.
Yeah.
Obviously, this is your posh headquarters.
It is. This is what a colonel would be sleeping in on the campaign. The soldiers would be in the A-frames and the bell tents, and the A-frame there would have had 7 people in it, and the bell tents would have had 14 people in there, possibly 1 woman in each, because one in 7 was allowed to go and follow the army. Like you said, that splits into 2, and they're each a certain size, because the officer was allowed 3 parts of. The army would pay for 3 pieces of baggage to be moved, and it had to be a certain size, so it all fitted onto the baggage wagon train.
Right, yeah.
So they slotted, you had 60 inches by 32, I can't remember exactly, but so that's why that is the size it is. They were given 3 bits of baggage, and anything else, his own status, and he would pay to have it brought himself, so the richer he was.
So did this all fit in one wagon, or a number of wagons?
He probably paid for an extra wagon to bring his own baggage.
So, I mean, I'm assuming there was no women ever here, was there? Or?
It's when the soldiers left England, they used to hold a lottery, and 1 in 7, well, between 1 in 5 and 1 in 7 soldiers' wives were allowed to go with the regiment.
Right.
And they were actually paid by the regiment, half pay, and they were expected to. So there would be 7 men in that tent with 1 woman, and she'd be expected to do all the cooking, cleaning. They would have done a lot of it themselves, but.
Oh, right.
And then you also had camp followers. Now they were people that weren't paid by the regiment, but they would follow the camp or even get ahead of the camp, buy up all the food and everything else, and then they would sell their services in whatever way to maintain a living and follow the army. There was talk of a soldier that was on a battle. I can't remember which, but it may have been Salamanca. The regiment went out to fought the battle, came back, and he was married to this. It was his wife. Because as soon as they all thought he had died on the battlefield, and as soon as he dies, she comes off regimental strength because she's not part of the army anymore. And they would have to find their own way back.
Oh, right.
So he's not died. He's actually been told to stay back to guard prisoners. So at 24 hours he comes back into camp, and she's already remarried because to save her status in the camp, she married somebody else in the tent. And her husband then came back a day later.
Oh dear.
That's a true story.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but that's the only way. She just literally remarried again and came back on strength. They give them 2 shirts, so 1 to wash and 1 to wear. But the shirts come down to your knees.
Yes.
So they're not only your shirt, they're your night shirt.
Yes.
And your underwear. because it wasn't underwear at that time.
Oh no!
So he wrapped it underneath. Now, if you think this has only been a day in this heat,
oh yes,
a white shirt, it must have been horrendous.
Yes.
You know, trying to keep that clean.
So when it comes to like Waterloo and battles in general, there, why do you think the French lost?
Napoleon blamed Grouchy, but you could come up with 100 different reasons. If Blucher hadn't turned up, Wellington would have got to Ostend and come back to England.
So,
but they had an agreement and they trusted each other.
Right.
And Napoleon didn't really appreciate that, or know that, or understand it.
Yes.
He didn't give Wellington much credence. He thought, oh well, my generals lost to him in the peninsula. I'm not going to lose to him. Of course he did. But the only reason he lost is because Wellington stood with his men on a reverse slope to protect them from the cannon barrage, from Napoleon's cannons. And he knew that if he held on long enough, the Prussians were coming.
So actually, tactically, I suppose the British were better than the Battle of
the Allies were better.
Oh, the
you
Allies.
have to remember that the majority of Wellington's army weren't English.
Where?
They were Irish, Welsh, Scots, Dutch, German. All nationalities. There were very few Englishmen, because the English who'd served Wellington so well in the peninsula, after Napoleon's first abdication, had been sent over to the colonies to fight in the colonies.
Yes.
The trained soldiers. The rest were all disbanded.
Yes, that's where they would have been short in numbers.
And a lot of raw recruits, English raw recruits. Yeah, so it was very much a continental victory. Although, of course, in Britain we laud it as Wellington and the great victory.
Yes, of course.
Basically, Spain is formed a democratic republican government in 1931 after being under a military dictatorship in the 1920s. The government is very conflicted, so every time there's an election, the left and the right, there's violence in the street, a lot of political conflict, and there's a few uprisings and coup attempts in the sort of turbulent years, and eventually, after a left-wing government is elected in February 1936, army officers and sort of right-wing aligned people organise a military coup, which they kick off in July 36, but it's put down in pretty much every major centre except for Spanish Morocco, where Franco is able to gain power with his Foreign Legion. And so it looks like it's going to be over before it starts. It's a complete failure for the right. But they're able to get Hitler and Mussolini to provide planes and ships, so he's able to ship all his troops over from Morocco into Spain, and they basically just cut their way up the west side of Spain, killing everyone they run into. Basically every time they go into a village, pick out teachers, trade unionists, anyone who's sort of left opinion, put up against the wall and shot. Famous example is Badajoz, which is quite a small, reasonable sized regional centre in the west side of Spain, and they shoot 5,000 people in a day, and they just drag them all into the bull ring, because Franco's argument is, we need to cleanse Spain of these revolutions. The Republic is ruined. We need to return to our tradition, and the best way to do it is kill them all. And he cuts his way up through Spain. The Republic is unable to get arms to supply because Britain and France enforce a policy of non-intervention. So that's the argument: is no one will get any weapons, and therefore the conflict can't grow. But they invite Hitler and Mussolini to chair on that committee, so it's a farce from the very start. Franco's able to get everything he could possibly need or want. 70,000 Italian troops who go over to fight, basically a free army, and 13 to 17,000 Germans go over as technical advisors, because Hitler's saying, what a wonderful opportunity to test out my planes and my tanks and my bombs, ready for this war I'm planning to start. So famously, Guernica, the big town that they level it, so Picasso paints his big paint portrait about that, but they're practicing blitz tactics on Madrid and Barcelona. They're testing out all their cannons and weapons, while the Republic is scrabbling around in the arms market trying to get hold of anything. And eventually they're basically left with no option, but they turn to the Soviet Union, and Stalin goes, we will supply you with arms. In exchange, send your gold supply, your national gold supply, to Moscow for safekeeping. Just safekeeping. Oh, it just so happens to be the 3rd largest in the world. And yes, they definitely got it back. Yeah.
Yes, of course.
And so Stalin does start to send weapons. It comes with the caveat of, you have to be a communist to get those weapons, so you better join up the Communist Party. So before the war, the Communist Party in Spain is tiny. They, thousands of members, and it just grows and grows and grows and gains more power, because it's the only way to get the supplies to win the war or to get any political advancement. And in the same process, he goes, well, I'm going to send over my secret police agents as well. We're going to get rid of people we don't like. So they torture to death like the leaders of political opponents that they don't like. Even like George Orwell, who's gone over and he's joined an anti-Stalinist like communist party. He's put on a notice and he's like, well, they're coming for you, and he basically leaves the country before they can get hold of him. But there's the potential that he would have been executed and purged. No Animal Farm, no 1984, he wouldn't have lived through it at all. So on the one hand, you've got all the military hardware and power you could possibly need to fight a war, and on the other hand, you've got a state at war with itself, and the Republic can't sustain it, and it eventually crumbles through a war of attrition. And Franco's able to gain power in April 1939. He's killed hundreds of thousands of people. Spain has the 2nd largest number of mass graves in the world, only beaten by Cambodia. So that really makes you think about the scale of violence. And Franco is able to stay in power until 1975, and he dies in his bed. So he does very well out of it.
Yeah.
But eventually, Spain is able to transition to democracy. There is a pact of silence for a period of about 30 years, because to try and discuss or even talk about the Civil War would probably have caused another one. So that's how severe it was, and it's only in the previous 10 to 15 years or so that people are now beginning to grapple with it, that Franco has been removed from his huge mausoleum grave, that people are now able to exhume the bodies of their relatives who were executed and return to proper burials, and also actually quite a big reenactment scene as well. So, and certainly in the last 10 years, Spanish Civil War reenactment has grown as well. So although we lost the war, I like to think we've won in the long run. Yes. In terms of democracy and civil society. Yes. And people being able to sort of express themselves.
Yes.
So it's a long, painful road, but one that I think certainly has a lot of lessons now, and well,
yes,
a lot of lessons then.
There is, yes, thank you.
You're very welcome.
You've got 2 different sizes, haven't you, bayonets here? Did they both go on the same rifle?
Yeah,
or did they get, yes.
Well, that one's shorter because it's the exact same pattern as the one used with the older rifle.
Right, okay.
But because this is a shorter rifle, they needed a longer one to have enough reach. I was my man upon a horse, because cavalry was still around.
Yes.
So they shortened the rifles to make them a bit more tactical and mobile for infantry, as well as the idea of a universal rifle, so they didn't have to have a rifle for the infantry and cavalry, so they could have the same arm. But that also meant that they needed a longer bayonet for that.
Yes, yeah.
And then,
yeah, you certainly would have seen them coming, wouldn't you, in those days? It's very...
this was ceremonial by that time. Oh. The British Army stopped fighting the Red in the mid-1880s after the Sudan War of 1895 and 1896, which is the famous one with the fall of Khartoum and Sir Gordon getting his head chopped off by the Mahdi.
Right.
Have you ever watched that film?
No.
There's a 1960s film called Khartoum, which is
yes,
based.
I have. Yes, I have.
That is based on that war, and General Gordon was the head of the army that was stationed in the Sudan, and Originally it was an Egyptian conflict, and then it became an Anglo-Egyptian conflict, and then and then Mahdi basically moved over westward and Sudan and besieged Khartoum. There was a relief column sent by London to try and relieve him, which funny enough had strong French in it, who would later become the Commander-in-Chief of the British Army in 1914. By that time he was a cavalry junior officer, and he was mentioned in dispatches as being one of the men of the rear guard with the 10th Hussars, and that was sort of little interesting fact is that a lot of the senior officers in the First World War had their starting in the Victorian colonial conflicts. But yes, that was the last time the British Army fought in red, and then ever since then it was a ceremonial dress.
But this is the same sort of uniform they did in like Zulu, that kind of?
Yeah, but it's a different type. So this is more of a ceremonial tunic, while what they had out in the Sudan and in Zululand and in South Africa in the First World War in the 1880s, and in Afghanistan as well. Even though Afghanistan you see more khaki drill. Those scarlets were a bit more of a lighter material, as well as they were called a working frock, so they were not as heavy, they weren't made of a heavier wool, this is made out of.
Yeah.
Actually that one's slightly more brighter than that one, because this one is based, this one is an actual ceremonial proper one, while this one is a earlier pattern, but it's a similar idea. So you see that this one's got a bit more frills and things like that in it.
Yes.
But mostly the difference is that the ceremonial tunics have got a white piping across the seam, while the working frocks were basic and they didn't have any of the flashy stuff.
Yes.
But the equipment is exactly the same as what they would have had in the 1890s.
Yes.
The only difference is that we've whitened them for parade use.
Yeah.
But the troops in the field would have stained them with tea and coffee and dirt and sort of rubbed it in and tried to get it a bit more sort of camouflage colour to blend in. Same with sort of blending in with the environment, but also with the khaki drill uniform that would have been used at the time.
Hi guys, we've come to the end of our day here at Abbots Bromley, and it's been a good day. It's been a warm day, hasn't it? Very warm, and I don't envy those poor re-enactors all dressed in wool. No, it's very warm. But we've seen a lot. We've had a lot of really interesting stories that people have told us, which you'll no doubt hear, and we've I think there's nothing else we can sort of say, is there? We've enjoyed it. We're going now. We're going home now, yes.
Because we're tired at night.
Okay, see you guys back at the studio.
Hi guys, we've just come back from Abbots Bromley Living History Festival, and it's been a great day. It only needed a few hours really to walk around. It didn't need a great deal of time. So many interesting re-enactors there though. That was the great thing. The history you can learn from these people is quite astounding really. I mean, everybody I spoke to had got some kind of really great historic story to tell. So hopefully you will have enjoyed the stories that they've come up with and told you about. I would say, I mean, it was a very hot day as well. I really felt sorry for those poor re-enactors in their woolen clothes, who must have been melting, especially those who were doing the actual reenacting. What I would say is, for me, I think there could be better things there. I think the reenactors are fabulous. They're different. You've got a few there that you don't get anywhere else, which, well, not that I've been to yet anyway. So it's nice to have somebody different there. What I would say is it needs more stalls. I think there needs more activities. You know, make it more family orientated, put some events on, like when we've gone like country fairs and things like that. They've, you know, got stalls with different things on. You've got a couple obviously that were selling things, because Andy went and bought himself some Anglo-Saxon stroke Viking scissors,
that he wanted, and Xander bought a sword. So there you go. So, you know, there is room to have more stalls there selling other things, perhaps more food stalls too, perhaps a bit more of a, I don't know, a bit more of a vibe, you know, get a lot more activity going on there. I think would improve it. Not saying it was bad at all, it was interesting. It's fun to see the reenactment going on, but like I say, just to improve it a bit. If you're watching, I would think you need more stalls, you need a few more activities to get some vibe, get more people vibe. Plus also the signs to get to it there wasn't any. So we were relying on sat-nav, and obviously it's a farm, and there was no signs to get to it. So I think really signage would be a good thing, you know, just put some roundabout, you know, when you enter Abbots Bromley to where to go. I think that would be a good thing. That's just what I would notice on this. Great day for families though anyway. Good few hours out, especially when the weather's nice. So that's it for today. Hopefully see you next week with a different location. Next time I'll be doing something different again. It's not a reenactment. So I'll see you soon. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.